updates from the farm. Would you believe we started these a year ago, Alf-Gøran? And we were talking about all of the different things that we had to come as obviously a way to connect in COVID. And now here we are 1 year later, still doing these farm updates from a distance.
Yeah, it's amazing. A year. That's actually how long it has been. It's time has flown past, and it's been over a year since I was in the US the last time, and I still can't understand it. But it has been good in some ways. At least we have been able to do this, and this is an important way of communicating out what we do, and a lot better than me traveling over and trying to on a smaller arena explain what we're doing and why we're doing it. So absolutely.
Yeah, the impact has been tremendous. And so for those of you that are tuning in and you've been watching the progress that we have been able to make over the course of the last year, I can tell you that it's been incredible to form that connection between the market, this, as we say, this chain of well-being from the farm all the way to the market, and what information we've been able to share with all of you. And I have heard feedback about how amazed everyone is about how we just keep each week moving forward in spite of these extremely challenging times. So what we're here to talk about today actually is this journey to fair trade certification. And what I wanted to do was start off with a conversation about what certifications and recommendations mean to us at Kvaroy Arctic in the market. And I preface that with, because we're already there doing the right things. So we're investing, for those of you that don't know, we have 2 full-time people that focus on this. They're out there really working hard to gather information, be able to plug it into the right portals and engage with all of these certifications and recommendations. Why from the beginning, as especially you came into the US market, why was this important?
No, for us, it's confirmation of what you're doing. We do a lot. We tend to try to move forward all the time, and some part of that exercise is trying to slow down a little bit and make sure that we're treading the right way, that we're doing the right things, and starting with our whole food certification as the first one. It has been like a guide way to where we are today. We're guiding through all of these certifications with the whole food standard first, Global GAP, ASC, then into American Heart Association, best aquaculture practice, and also we have the Seafood Watch, the Monterey Bay Aquarium. All of these things they have different things they focus on. They have different ways of guiding us into the, like I said, in the right directions to a more sustainable and a better way of doing what we do.
So that's part of the interesting thing is the crossover. So we're seeing a lot of entities get involved with certifications and recommendations. We see them pop up all of the time, different partners asking for different things that they've built into their sourcing schemes. But you see something unique in each one.
Yeah, absolutely. They have, like I said, they have a different focus. Some of them have the same things they are very into, like rights for workers and those kind of things that are very regulated by Norwegian law, and so we're well within those rules. But they have different things. Global GAP has the chemicals and focus on that, and having a system for it. Not being used. The ASC standard has their things that they focus on, escapes, and again with the chemical use that you're not using, copper nets, and then moving into others, and Whole Foods with their feed and their end product focus. So all of them they have a different focus, and we have chosen that way. We could have been affected by what you said, the customers asking, I need this standard, I need this one, but we have carefully chosen our standards to where we are. I even believe there are more we could have chosen on the way, but for me, it's important to have the right partners and the right partners to move the industry forward.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? Is that some of this, just for everyone, before we get into fair trade, there's so much of this that also is about paving a path that then those that come after us will be looking to take, so that we're really, they say the rising tide, right, will raise all boats, right?
Yeah. Mm. No, it's yeah, you're correct. It's finding guidance, and for other also. We're not. I don't know if it's. We'll never be 100% sure that we're working with the right partners, but I believe looking into what we have done and what all of these pieces have fallen together in a way has been good so far, and I'm hoping that we are looking at the right one. And I believe also that more and more of these standards will be a standard for everyone, a standard that everyone needs to meet to be part of the industry or to be able to sell your product. In the end, we are living in a world where customers are demanding more and more and more from the producers. You need to constantly move things forwards. So that's being first mover is never easy, but yeah, I think
Yes.
we're doing something right.
I mean, we definitely understand, having that focus, that feature, and really moving things forward. And I would imagine as well, different impact and importance in, say, Europe versus the United States. So let's for a second talk about those differentiators, because of course, American Heart Association is the easiest one to be able to call out. This is a health certification. It's a red check shield that talks about nutrition, where that is not going to be as applicable where we're selling into Europe. So talk about that, just what you've seen in terms of the differences, because there is some crossover there.
Yeah, some crossover, that's for sure. The reason why we started working with the US market as our main focus back in 2008 was because of the customers and where they are regarding what they want and how they want it. Europe, I've always said that Europe is a little bit behind when it comes to focusing on the right things, according to me. But I think it's according to many. They're more. There's more focus on those standards that are focusing on the rights of the workers, right. Making sure that we're not buying products from companies that are not taking care of their people. In the US, they're more about food safety, health, like you said, with American Heart Association label. We have standards in Europe also, like Labrie, for example. They have a different focus, but not quite there. So it's according, or in my knowledge, there's a huge difference between the European market and the American market and where they are focus-wise, and that's why we have done what we've done. We do sell some of our fish goes to the European market, but it's like you say, we cannot. There's no one will care if it's American Heart Association certified. It's right. Not important.
And do you feel like those certification marks, where the fish is marked, it matters? That the buyers and the consumers are recognizing that? I mean, we see that with the Whole Foods mark, because it'll say responsibly raised. We've seen that a little bit with Aquaculture Stewardship Council trying to broaden the use of that mark worldwide. Yeah. Do you think people are recognizing it? So you don't have to talk about it. They just see it on the box and they check that box literally.
That's maybe some of the problem also with some of the standards, is that it's not recognizable for the customers. It's all the studies show that we haven't done a good enough job to communicate those standards and how important they are. So there's a long way to go there. I think they are different than the one we're talking about in here today. The fair trade has gone a bit farther than the other ones to be recognized in the market as an important standard. But it's yeah, that's we have a long way to go, but it's going there, absolutely.
I think that's something very important for everyone to understand, is that when we look at the marks, like in the days when Seafood Watch allowed the use of their mark, it was less than 1% of the entire US population recognized what that was. So for all of the effect, all of the amazing work that they're doing, there was this missing piece that didn't push it down to the consumer or chefs to be able to recognize it. ASC, even less than that, as these are new. BAP, it's an amazing goal to have that recognizability, but it isn't there yet. Which brings us to fair trade, because fair trade was very interesting when I was first introduced to what fair trade's goals were around aquaculture. We knew that there was a relatively small program in wild captured fisheries, tuna, mahi-mahi, scallops, lobster, Bristol Bay salmon, but a small program relative to coffee and chocolate and some of the other incredible work that they had done, both with fair trade in Europe and then fair trade USA. So let's talk a little bit and give everyone, I think it's okay to sort of open up the door here a little bit and give them a sense of what you thought when I first brought you the idea that I felt very strongly about the fact that fair trade was in seafood was going to be the next most important mark, particularly as they had adopted ASC as part of the standard.
Yeah, the initial thought was that, yeah, in Norway we have fair trade for sure, but and in Europe we have fair trade, but it's all about the coffee and chocolate and yeah, making sure that poor communities get their share of the profit selling those products. So I remember thinking, is this the right way? And I even had my board saying, no, this is not a wise way to, how would that look if we had that, and what would people think? It's a completely different thing. So they didn't understand the US market, how that's work, and how much the fair trade have been working with seafood, and how important it's also going to be in the future, working with fair trade to help them have a standard that will focus on the right things and make sure that the producers are producing aquaculture or farmed fish in a good way. So going back to that, it's we still don't have any news about this in Norway now. There's no one saying that Kvaroy is being fair trade certified, because it's not a focus area.
It's not newsworthy.
It's not newsworthy, no. But at the same time, it should be in the industry news. It should be quite big, because it's a huge thing, being the first salmon farm and getting this, paving up the way for the other ones to come in. And it's going to be, I don't remember, I think you said a number for me. It's 45% recognizable in the market. So it's important. They have a big role, and being able to help them form a standard that, yeah, again, will help the industry is important.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so many pieces of this, because the first thing is looking at, was this the type of standard that would be applicable for our region and our farms, and particularly as it trickled down to our processors as well as the team that's making the burgers and dogs. So for everyone who's watching to understand, this touches all pieces of our supply chain. And when you don't have a full lens, Alf-Gøran, to what's happening at one particular processor, that commitment that can make sure that not just those that are working on the farm, but those that are in Germany working at the processor are also making a commitment to fair trade. So to me, that was part of the motivation, and I think for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always it's yeah, a learning curve for also understanding more the businesses we work with, and being able to secure that we're working with good companies that are doing a good job for their workers again. So it's been an insightful process, of course, a long process, but an
Yes.
insightful process to do the standard and do all the research and all the digging that we needed to do to be where we are today.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to talk about what this means for the entire ecosystem. So everyone understands that all of this places, the spaces that touch this fish, touch the feed, all of that are then working as partners in this journey. This journey started about a year ago. You actually met with Blake and the team from Fair Trade, and we were planning on meeting in person at SINA. So we're anniversarying that initial introduction, and then began the journey of trying to get this done with a lot of lack of understanding, and also in the middle of COVID. So let's talk about what it means for those that are working on the farm that are going to get this premium, because for everyone to understand, we support in the premium that's being paid, and it's being absorbed by Kvaroy Arctic. We are going to pay into the Fair Trade Seafood Program. So we're supporting that program and the growth that it will have, both on the wild fishery side as well as on the aquaculture side with the premium. So hopefully everyone understands that we think it's important, and that every pound of our Kvaroy salmon is being included in that Fair Trade premium that's going to Fair Trade USA. That's the Fair Trade Seafood. The next piece of that is what's going to go to the farm and the hatchery and this committee that's going to oversee those funds. And I think it's important to talk about, there's ways to use that premium to do good, even if workers don't need a payment, need a bonus, the kinds of things that we talked about. Talk a little bit about the impact that fund can have as it's going to be directed by our farmers, the importance of those in the hatchery, and what they're going to be able to do with those funds.
Yeah, there are. It's going to be interesting to see. We don't know yet what it will be used for, but it's heavily regulated that it has to be in the benefits of the workers, and has to be something that will lift the community and the workers. Working for the in the Kvaroy system. So it's we have had meetings with the workers. I don't quite think they understand it yet, how important this is and how much we're talking about here. It's difficult to understand, and it's difficult to understand that I won't have a part in it, and that they will decide themselves what to do with it. But I think it will play an important role. We're in a small community. Kvaroy is a small island with only 80 people. The company has taken a lot of responsibility building an activity park for the kids, and all of these things can now be lifted even more with that fund, being able to lift the park, do some good for the whole of the island, for the whole of the area, be part of arranging meetings with everyone, and those kind of social things that we for sure miss now during the situation we are in now.
And also I want everyone to think about recruiting people to come to the island, building tourism, keeping ahead of the school. When you're on a small island and you're trying to recruit to get families to come, I mean, these island communities across the globe, with global warming, with climate change, all kinds of things are going to have changes and effects. And this is exactly what this committee and this group are going to be able to determine. So that's a piece of it. I think that that was sort of the lift that we had to go through to get everyone to understand, when you have a country where they're providing college educations, where everyone's getting fair wage, where there's huge amounts of inspections to make sure that there's fair treatment, all of that. But Fair Trade Seafood is the only track in all of Fair Trade USA that has an eco standard that has to be met, an environmental standard that has to be met as well. So you have 45 plus partners, including Bristol Seafood on the scallop side and others, Anova Seafood with tuna, that are making impact in ways in these wild capture fisheries that really impact fisher communities. And then you've got an area where we're able to now look down the road and around the bend and make impact with designated funds in a way that the company would not be allowed to invest in potentially on its own. So I think that is incredible. Let's talk about, there's been some questions about market impact. Fair trade seafood hasn't made a difference. You know, it remains to be seen whether or not there's going to be a market impact. And obviously what we want to see again is this red thread, which is doing the right thing, the environmental piece. And then ultimately we talk a lot about the fish has to then generate the price that pays back for all of that investment. And you were just saying, I mean, 1 in 3 in the United States recognizes the fair trade logo. So we'll have that on our boxes. It's on all of the new packaging for burgers and dogs, all of the packaging with the American Heart Association on the retail frozen pack. Yeah. What's that going to mean to the market, and what's the response been so far?
No, the response so far has been very, very good in the market. It's been amazing watching our salespeople get new requests all the time because of that. It's for us. It's important. We are trying to communicate the story on what we're doing and why we're doing it, and it's important for us to make sure that we still stick out in a growing amount of salmon coming into the U.S. market, and growing amount of people doing a lot of good things, for sure. But we want to stick out, and these are those things that we, being first mover, we are able to stick out for before others come aboard and get certifications. It's important that the premium we get there can be used. And again, it's you say pricing is so important. It's important to build what we're trying to build. We are lucky to have the family-owned company that are trying to build a community, trying to build activity, and trying to get people to move here on the island. COVID has done one good thing, and that is that a lot of people are now looking to the smaller places to live instead of living in the cities. They realize that maybe it's better to live on a place like we are. So that's good. But it's been really so far a game changer in the market.
I mean, it's been 2 weeks, and what we encourage everyone to do is just watch for the announcements, because the good news is these were relatively new value-added programs. We were able to come to market with them as fair trade certified. It wasn't like the lift with coffee where you had 1 or 2 or 3. They were considered carried at very premium stores, and now you can walk through any grocery store, commodity, a club store, any of those warehouse stores, and see the fair trade logo. And that, I think, ultimately is the goal, that this creates a foundation, a base standard that everyone is working in aquaculture. And I don't think the team would say that we were reaching when we would say they weren't looking for a salmon farm to start with. But imagine the impact on tilapia farms in China, and some of the other things that we can start to look at. Is the U.S. market is a big market. Yeah. And to help those other workers in South America, or if it's at this point, there's a farmed shrimp is one of them. And I think everyone will see other farmers come on board. And the more we, again, lift all of that, the more impact that we can make across the globe in terms of facing all of these issues that have been difficult for aquaculture.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about turning the tide for aquaculture and making people understand that it is done right. It can be the future how we raise food and how we feed a growing population. And I think fair trade and the standard, working with them, I think that's going to be again a huge game changer in the way of thinking. Absolutely.
And I think that the caution in the fish and seafood industry in the US is only because the program wasn't big yet. And the bigger it gets and the more reasonable those premiums can be and the more engaged the retailers are that we've seen already reaching out that have been supporters or not of fair trade, you're going to see these types of programs grow. And if we're working together, I think one of the things that we know is that we had one customer that described our certifications as like the bottom of the NASCAR with all of the different sponsorship. Now we've got this long list that barely fits on the bottom of the sales tear sheet. But the point of it is that I think there's going to be alignment. And as you start to get these types of certifications and the certification and recommendation groups are working together, like Seafood Watch and ASC now, what we'll see is that it will be more reasonable. It won't be just available to farms that can afford it or afford 2 people to work on assessment. We have to get to a point where it can be more broadly adapted. And it's things like blockchain. We've talked about technology's effect in being able to help these smaller farms engage in certification and recommendation schemes. Talk about that a little bit before we take off.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. It's the digitalization of the industry and the data that we have available should help us go where we're going. I remember when we started with the global gap and also the whole food certification, all the paper we had to just store in the office for every time we got the people from Switzerland to visit, and we had to show, and some of them were at that point manually handmade. So how can you ever be sure that wasn't tampered with or done anything? We have to move the industry to a point where all the data, all the things are automatically pushed into like the blockchain system, where an auditor will then audit the data system and not how many papers and how many signatures you have on papers. It should be like you said, it should be easy. It should be a very easy system. At the moment, it's been interesting also to see the way we can do it now with audits being done over internet and remote audits. You get the same quality of the audits. There's nothing wrong with that. I think the whole audit industry and the whole certification industry has seen how things can be done more automatically, how data can be used and sensors can be used to secure this. And blockchain is important, of course. It's what we're doing with the blockchain and what we're doing with gathering all of that data. That's going to be used in many, many areas in the future.
It's amazing the data collection that you can do just from your phone. And that if we looked at a small shrimp farmer or anyone else that maybe didn't have access to the kind of data collection systems that we have on our farms, it is a real game changer. And then showing the industry, for all of you to be inspired and show the industry, show the consumer that this is important. Make it easy to make that decision to have a purchase and check that box. If you're buying a fair trade certified seafood, you know that you're securely buying something that is certified environmentally to the highest standard, but also we are not sustainable if we're not taking care of the entire economy, ecosystem, workers, and making impact with those premiums in a way that is focused towards what the workers feel like they want and they need to have their voice in this process. I know it's been a long process. I know we feel like, it was almost like having a child for Kvaroy Arctic, in this process, but we thank so much the entire fair trade group. We all were pushing and pulling on one another to get this over the finish line. We're excited to see the new partners and welcome them in to this family. And for those of you that are buying or reporting about these things, remember, we're only as good as the support that we all work together and collaboratively to be able to get across that finish line. So I thank you for the confidence and making this journey for Kvaroy, because I think that really the best is yet to come and the impacts are yet to be seen.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you for joining me on this update today. And I know that we'll be talking soon.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.